Hello, and welcome to another edition of Maximum Growth Live, our Tuesday show. My name is Jay Ruane. I'm the CEO of FirmFlex, a social media marketing agency for lawyers, as well as managing partner of Ruane Attorneys. Here in Connecticut, we do criminal rights, criminal defense, and civil rights. And no matter what I say, Seth, my words are getting all jumbled up. But with me, as always, my man down in the capital area, my man Seth Price, right over there, CEO of Blue Shark Digital, your SEO for law firms, all types of digital marketing, as well as the managing partner of Price Benowitz, your DC, Maryland, Virginia, and South Carolina law firm. Seth, you're back up in the in the Beltway. You're back in our nation's capital. Things have changed from when you left. The weather is much colder. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing okay, but it has been culture shock. The difference between Florida and seeing Georgia, where it's open for business, and the warmth and people are outside, and you know me, you're the introvert, I'm the extrovert. I love sitting and talking to people. I got to do that. It was an awesome winter, and I come back and I drove downtown. I had an early dentist appointment. It should have taken 45 minutes. I was there in 20 minutes. It was unbelievable. It is a ghost town. It reminds me of the federal government shutdown. There is nothing going on in downtown D.C. Florida, there's a rush hour. There's no rush hour in D.C. And it is really, really interesting. We have basically just support staff in the office to make sure mail gets open. But the mayor's order still hasn't been lifted. And we are, again, the suburban offices, they're jamming. But downtown, everybody's still working remote. And Blue Shark, as you know, we turned the keys back. And that's been fully remote.
Yeah, I'm in that position now. I ran by all of my people in the office and said, "When do you want to come back?" And pretty much universally, it was, "Do we have to? We're good at home. We like the flow." And even though a couple of lawyers were like, "I'd like to work out of an office 1 or 2 days a week," even they want to be home, for the most part, because they're enjoying, seeing their kids get off the bus, having earlier dinners, getting to have a little bit more of a family life. And I think, that's a culture change that's going to come even after we get done with all this stuff and everybody has their vaccines. I think you're going to see more people focusing on how to make their work-life balance work better for them.
Or we don't know. And that's the worst part, because I know you've been handicapping. I'm trying to handicap future real estate needs, and it's painful, because in Florida, they're just like, F it, they're back, right? So my question is, when we are back, it will not be a day, it will not be a week, it'll be months, if not years, before the Northeast really says, because part of it's psychological. I just had an issue with a longtime friend where they heard we were down in Florida and what was going on, and it was like, people don't appreciate it. There are people, and you know them, you're in the Northeast, where they don't leave their bubble. It's almost like they have shifted into hermit life, and if you talk about a life that's not that, you are somehow, hurting society. They have no idea there's an entire half of the country that's making me look like, I was the conservative person. People laughed at me that I wanted outdoor meetings. But it is something that I don't think it's coming back quickly. But at some point, people say that, but a year from now, you may want them back. You may be like, I love the virtual, but you know what? If I really want to have that culture, I can't create a culture. Whatever it is, there may be reason that that right now, our memories are very short. And you may want people back. And then you're like, okay, what do I do about real estate now? The good news is, I think that we're going to have plenty of real estate options for the foreseeable future.
Well, I think you're definitely going to find some real estate options, because there are some businesses that can really function totally remote, or businesses have gone out of business. I mean, that's the reality. I drive around our corporate complex, and we've got 10 corporate buildings near me, and there's a lot of open parking spaces, whereas before there weren't.
You can't tell if that's because they're closed or if they're remote.
Well, I can tell you right now, a major corporation had 3 floors of one of our buildings and moved out. I mean, they're Unilever.
Right, and the question is just like Blue Shark. Right, so there are people, and these guys were playing hardball with our lease, even during COVID, and the place is still vacant, so who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. So speaking of the future and where you go, this is something that I wanted to talk about, and we haven't really talked about it recently. on the show. It's something that I've been talking to you about for years, and it's the concept in a law firm of research and development. And so what I want to do is I want to throw that out there. Let me take a quick break. You'll hear from our sponsors, and when we get back, I want to talk about the role of R&D in our law firms, because I think it dovetails into a question I want to have a conversation with you about how do you grow, and how do you grow intentionally. So let's take a quick break. We'll hear from our sponsors, and when we get back, we'll be back live with more Maximum Growth Live.
In this world today, if you want to grow your business, you want to grow your firm, you want to take on more cases and make a bigger impact, you have to have a digital blueprint. Statistically, throughout the time that we've been working with Blue Shark Digital, our law firm, the Atlanta Divorce Law Group, grew over 1,400%. They truly understand where we're headed and how we want to get there. I have a team in Blue Shark Digital that I feel like has my back.
Okay, Seth, we're back, and here's the question I have for you. I'm talking to some of my friends in the last 2 weeks, and they are in the drug business. They were not the drug dealing friends I had when I was in high school and college, but they are professionally chemists that work for chemical companies. And they were talking about how they were coming up and doing their budget for in their departments R&D and what they want to do. And I said to myself, as a law firm, I'm a business too, but I don't segregate, 3% or 5% a year for something called research and development, just to see what's out there. And I'm wondering if you do that.
Good question. I definitely do it on the marketing side, right? We experiment with stuff, right, whether it be some TikTok or some Instagram. I'm still the antisocial guy because I have not cracked the code, but I definitely on the search side. And part of what I love is we get to experiment with stuff at Price Benowitz, which if it works becomes Blue Shark material. It's almost like a comedian. There was always the musician, the Paul Schaefer always talked about, he'd try something out on Letterman, and if it worked, he'd play it for his friend in a bar. I always love that sort of analogy. But so I love that piece of it. But the piece that is sort of, I've probably gone a little bit overboard with was sort of experimentation with different practice groups, if that's what you're going at. And the idea of trying different things out to see, hey, maybe this will work. And it's funny because I give you flack all the time for the Jay Ruin idea machine and the idea that we should be quarantining stuff for X period of time before we roll it out. But I'm probably as guilty as anybody because, I love the fact that we diversified, but it's also, it leads to other issues because then you have all these different babies out there and you have to take care of them.
And that's the question. That's the fundamental question that I want us to talk about today is, as you want to grow your firm, do you think it is better to double down, triple down, find your vertical and really go all in on that vertical and build that vertical? Or do you think the smart law firm owner, especially knowing what we've gone through in the last 15 months, will start to diversify once they get to sort of critical mass in one particular vertical so that they have other niches that are working in case of economic downturn or shifts in the market? What is the right approach to this? Because this is something that a lot of lawyers that are now coming out on the back end, having survived something that was monumental, need to start talking about now and budgeting for and planning for and working into if you're doing EOS, you make it one of your rocks per quarter to identify these things. Let's talk about this because I have a feeling our perspectives might be a little bit different. So where do you come on this thing?
Right. So, what would make the best TV if I said, absolutely, this is the only way to go. And we sort of had the back and forth. But like most things in life, if we're being honest about it and we don't want to be a sensationalist, it depends. That said, I feel that, in moderation, all of these things can work. There is a time and place. That's
what I'm saying, Seth. You can't start a new vertical in moderation.
Well, yes. Okay. So what I would say is, first, it depends what you like to do. right? Second, it depends on the appetite for risk and the bandwidth you have to execute. So for myself, I love the idea of diversifying because it's nice in the sense that you have ups and downs. You have I mean, the number of people I've said, hey, you have a plaintiff's practice and a criminal defense practice, and you have cash flow. That's really positive. The downside was there was a point in time where we just did criminal, and we could say, oh, we just do criminal, we do nothing else. That's why I've marketed that way. I want the marketing to remain unique. But yeah, I would say that if as I reflect and as COVID has shown, I've seen that you only have so many hours in the day for yourself. So depending on your model and whether or not you're running it, my model was to bring in other people to run those verticals. The downside is you're now betting on somebody beyond your own person. And if you control it, so if it's a pardons practice, and even though you may not be the main lawyer on it, your thumb is on it, you know what's going on, and it's a scalable widget because a limited amount of your time and a lot of staff time, God bless. But when it's something that you're going to have to business coach that person and that there are many moving parts or widgets within it, and something that I've been struggling with has been like the immigration practice, where there are a lot of different staff members involved, and these people need management and oversight. That's where I don't have any expertise or frankly passion. That may be something that where we step too far and would have been better off if we had diversified less and I had put the hours into some of those further diversifications into doubling down on PI and criminal. So I like diversification, but I think that you can potentially, if it's not a turnkey, you seem very good at identifying areas where it's limited J time, because that is you have only so much J time, and you have your main core competencies that you want to get your revenue from, and you have your family, and then you have firm oversight and all these other things that time I think I took a little too flippantly. And part of it was I'm going to put a bunch of things out there and see what works. It's not like a 2-month thing. It could be a 5-year thing, as long as it's not losing money. So anyway, I want to hear your thoughts. What's your thought on this?
But see, here's the thing. So you are in. Let's go back in a time machine, right? You're a criminal defense practice, and you say, you know what? We want to add the area of personal injury or immigration or some other type of practice area. Are you doing that when you know you've eked out every dollar from the criminal defense market that's available? And if not,
yes,
why
not?
But why not? Because, if you have a set of core competencies, you have a workflow, you have a team that works in that area, why walk away from something that is so much easier for you to scale and say, I want to all of a sudden add another practice here? And we saw this during COVID. I saw people who do criminal defense and said, now I'm going to open a family law shop because family law there's going to be many more divorces because people are going to be at home. And now I'm going to open up this other shop, and that's how I'm going to make things happen. But let's take it, if people do that in the best of times, when they still have market share to go after. And it would seem to me to be fool's errand to try to open up something entirely brand new when you haven't squeezed every dollar out of your existing vertical.
Look, I don't disagree in the sense that I appreciate that. And that's, I think, solid, good advice. But at the same time, I think the caveat there is, I don't think you need, there's a place of diminishing returns where you could squeeze more, and that some of it is based on talent. And as you move away from the mothership, let's say Ruane Attorneys was going to end up with New York and eventually New Jersey for criminal. Not crazy. The way you dominated, there was no biggest player in DUI in New York and in Northern Virginia. You could have, with your connections in the college and DUI DLA, you could have expanded your footprint. But as you expand, you need that higher level talent. And as we know, this is when you move outside of the immediate, under your thumb. As you do that, the piece that to me is really significant is getting talent that is senior enough that wants to do the work, but is not so entrepreneurial they want to do it themselves. And that's a very
small segment of the population of lawyers that are available.
And so And you met last week Dane, who's amazing. And if I could clone him, he's making great money. The firm's making great money. He is, they are diamonds in the rough. And I thought, and so what I then went to was, hey, almost like the Giants. I know you're a Jets fan, but the Giants drafting concept has historically been, until they've been misled for the last decade, was we'll take the best player available. And so my attitude was, if I saw a rock star that happened to fill one of these holes, with the idea being we could then cross refer and there'd be economies of scale. And academically, that's true. I think the piece that is most important to think about is, do the business models work similarly, or are they different? And what I have learned, sort of my big takeaway here, is that from my perspective, things like personal injury, workers' comp, med mal, the contingency world is one general widget. There are different pieces of it, but that it has similar cash flow issues, similar client issues, similar staff issues, right? The next piece I'd almost lump together is like the family law criminal defense world. I know it's not all flat fee unless you're Lee Rosen on the family law side, but it's similar. People come in, they have a problem in their time of need. It's generally one person, maybe in some family law cases, you get a second person for bigger cases, and same with criminal and bigger cases, but generally it's lower overhead, family law a little bit higher as far as staff, but it's billable staff, versus the final piece, which would be like, let's say, the immigration, trust, and estates component, where it is a managed practice. And there are plenty of people, we know so many friends of the show, who have crushed it in trust and estates or in family law, but I have found those to be the hardest to comport within the system. And not that there's not a way to make a buck, but they are harder to bring into that same family from the point of view of shared services and the management of it. Like, I feel like in criminal, I've cracked the code on how to scale that. And it is a different perspective or skill set in those other areas that seem more, at least from where I sit right now today and my growth curve, seems more challenging to get the margins compared to doing what you laid out before, which is, hey, just keep you have your widget, keep replicating it by geography or level of case or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, it would just seem to me that you are really giving up great opportunity if all of a sudden you start seeing the grass is greener in other practice areas, because as we all know, it's not. And that every practice area takes a certain amount of intense focus, a lot of work, a lot of money in some respects to ramp that up. And it would just seem, you say to me, okay, in order to start competing, you're going to need probably a $50,000 investment in SEO. You're going to need to have staff that can do, we're talking probably to go from zero to passable in a new vertical, you might need to invest $150,000, $200,000 to get up to speed. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to pick up cases along the way, but in order to become sort of the systemized, growth-oriented law firm that you and I like to have and people aspire to, there comes an investment in time and the opportunity cost. And I'm just saying, hey, if I could take that same money and push it into my existing practice areas, yep, I could own them.
Well, and Jay, look, this is I just had this life moment. Because we all do what we like to do, right? You love the systems. If you had tripled down on search marketing, you could have been 3 times your size. You did very well. Nothing wrong with what you did, but with what you've done, you probably have awesome margins because of the systems you've put in place, because of how you've run your practice. Me, I love the building and creating, and probably to my detriment, I know at a very cost-effective rate how to build something. So to become the dominant player in a market in DC, particularly outside of criminal and PI, I can snap my fingers and make that happen. But I don't have the Jay Ruane discipline or interest in setting up the systems that would eke the ROI from them. And I think that the criminal practice, look, we also have Dave Benowitz, who is a juggernaut with legitimacy and best practices. So we had a model and could say to people, hey, nobody works harder than him. People put in there. So with criminal, I was able to replicate it with less hands-on per lawyer because of how we set things up. But the areas that have more moving parts, where it takes staff to produce something, it needs a Jay Ruane-esque operations systems person. And if you don't do that, you're going to be in trouble. So for me, I've put my systems time into the injuries, into the plaintiff's practice, but I have not taken, because it's not what jazzes me, have not put that as much into some of these other areas. And it's shown the margins are less good when you like, again, I can make the phone ring, but the drive to be as efficient as possible, which I wish I had more Jay Ruane in me, isn't there as much. And probably if I did, I wouldn't be as, creative on the marketing side. But what you've been able to do, and so it's like the grass, again, grass is always greener. I know that it's almost like I can make the phone ring, but how do I squeeze the juice out of the orange, right, to mix two metaphors?
And this comes from me, reading business magazines for years, where they say, your best customer is the customer that you've already sold to, for a Snickers bar or Coca-Cola or whatever product it is that you can replicate. But, for the most part in our industry, your clients are one-offs, right? I mean, there's always the opportunity for a second client or a referral from that client. But for the most part, if you have a PI practice or you have a criminal practice, even a trust and estates practice, hopefully a family law practice, people interact with you once, maybe twice in their life. It's not like you can sell them the same thing every couple of months. And so my own thought was, hey, if I double down and I really focus on converting as many of the people that come to me. And so I just said, you know what, I'm spending extra money on remarketing to people that I've already been to, talking to people and hiring people to help me craft a drip campaign. Because if I've already paid for them to get to me and they know who I am, I want to convert them as best as I can. And I don't want to spend money or time or effort thinking about, hey, I'm going to bring in PI cases, because the chances of that scaling in a hyper competitive market are very difficult. Whereas I know I'm already halfway to owning one area in one niche, and that's the quandary. I'll go right out and tell you, I don't think you should diversify. I don't think you should build new verticals, because all it does is make you build verticals, and then either you invest more and more money and you detract from your golden goose, the one that's making you it's taking away your time from that, or you're wasting money on something that you don't necessarily have passion about. You're doing it just for the money, or you're taking attention away from and allowing competitors come up in your golden goose space, and so to grow your firm, I don't think you should be thinking about adding verticals until you've squeezed every dollar out of the ones that you have. I'm going to make that statement.
And I think that, like most things, I don't like extremes. I like diversity. I think that here, from an academic business point of view, absolutely. But for the people that diversified and had something other than criminal, they were pretty happy during COVID, right? That there was that diversity. I mean, criminal is probably the hardest hit of any of these verticals outside of tourism. And it was that. So to me, I like it. I get your point, but look, don't follow my model. I may have gone too far in diversity. I thought, and again, one of the things that I bemoan and wish I wish I could do better at is the cross-selling within. And because it's amazing, even within our PI clients come back for more PI. Do we get the occasional criminal client that needs PI? Yes, but not nearly at the rate that academically it should be. So to me, I was counting on a better cross-selling within the practice than I would have than what I've seen. Intuitively, I would have thought it'd be more, but I think that's too extreme a position. That yes, you could get more if you stayed focused, absolutely. But for many people out there, if you can somehow diversify, those are things that'll get you through some of the lean times, and it also depends who you are. You know me well enough. It's like it gives me an opportunity to think about something differently. But look, I think what we're both looking at is the grass is always greener. Did I tell you the story about my neighbor?
No.
I don't know if I shared this. So I'm sitting at my lawn is objectively not very good. It's historically been a bunch of dirt with some crabgrass because the kids rip everything out. And I finally, got a guy who sort of made it look halfway decent, but it was still just adequate. And the lady across our backyard, her father-in-law gardens in his retirement, and their lawn is extraordinary. And she looked over the fence one day, looked at my mediocre lawn, and says, "Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Your grass is awesome." And I said, "You realize, lady, you're the living embodiment of the grass is always greener." I mean, it was literally that was it. Like, that's where it came from. And I feel that, like, yes, you don't want to do it because the grass is always greener. Like, I'm doing criminal. Oh, there's more money in family. I get that, and I agree with you. But I think diversity is not such an awful thing. And while we've seen some people that have focused and dug really deep into one area and have done very, very well, and have built, really substantial practices, I personally believe that the diversity is something that has merit. It's just a very difficult thing to execute.
All right, folks, so that's our opinion when it comes to diversity. We're going to take another quick short break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap up the show. I got something I want to talk to Seth about Google My Business, and it's going to be interesting. So stick with us. We'll be right back with more Maximum Growth Live. Hi, I'm Jay Ruane, one of the founders of FirmFlex and a practicing attorney for over 20 years. Anyone who knows me knows how my firm runs on the systems we create, and it has allowed us to flourish, even in tough times. I spent years and hundreds of thousands of dollars until I finally figured out a way to engage my audience and drive top-of-mind awareness with social media. And what did I do once I figured it all out? I built a system for it, and now you can put that system to work for you. You see, we took the hard part, creating the content and finding the images, and made it foolproof. Every day you will have curated social media topics to post designed to make your firm constantly remind your audience about your firm, what you do, and how you can help. And the best part? You don't even need to hire a dedicated social media person to do this for you. In fact, you don't even need to hire anyone new. We designed the system to make it easy for you to delegate to your receptionist, assistant, or paralegal and have them execute solid social media for you in just 5 minutes a day. It's like having a content writer, researcher, and graphics designer at a fraction of the price it would cost to hire in-house. Sign up today for the Social Super System and start building your brand where your clients already are, on social media. Okay, we're back here, folks, with the end of the Tuesday show, and there's one thing I want to bring to Seth's attention, and it's something that a friend shared with me, and it was interesting. We talk a lot about Google My Business on this show, and what I found recently will blow your mind. I found a lawyer here in Connecticut who has set up his Google My Business at the post office and called his post office box his unit. So the law firm is at, the post office address unit 6, when it really is going to be
maybe a federal offense, but that will
you can't use a post office for private business like that. So yeah, it definitely is. But Seth, it's a creative way to get around the placement, because guess what? The post office is literally next door to the courthouse. So he's getting that as, his button is right where the traffic is, to some extent.
A couple things. I don't think that's your road to riches. And I'm actually familiar with this concept, and I'll tell you why. When Virginia, when I first came into business, the state of Virginia did not allow virtual offices. So what Google ended up hating later, Virginia was against the ethical rules. That has morphed. They changed that. But so when I started, you could not use a Regis and follow their ethics laws. But there are a lot of criminal lawyers that didn't want to use their homes. And PO boxes were the one exception you could use. I think if you're running a real practice, it's not sustainable. Google will, like, I don't know if they're going to flag it because you have to be able to have a place, but they're certainly not going to let that be a multiple office place. So I don't think it's a road to riches, but it's certainly creative. In this case, if as people go, if you're a competitive market, somebody will go and change that to be a PO box, in which case it looks kind of ludicrous when somebody's trying to find their lawyer.
Yeah, it's just interesting to me. I mean, the place has got 37 Google reviews, so people are actively using this GMB to leave reviews, etc. But I just think it could hurt you long term.
Absolutely, I do not recommend that.
I definitely.
And before we wrap up, I got one other thing for the antisocial lawyer. I've been playing around a bunch with Clubhouse. I now have two. I have two clubs. They're sanctioned by Clubhouse. Every Tuesday night at 7 p.m., the SEO Insider, which is where I bring in different thought leaders in digital search. And we've had a great conversation in there. It's been a lot of fun. And then on Fridays, I hope you'll join, Jay. I set up a max growth Clubhouse club. And hopefully we can continue the conversation with people outside of our own little fishbowl. It is amazing how many people listen to our fishbowl. We really appreciate it. We have, when I was traveling through Florida and Georgia, I'd meet people and they're like, yeah, I listen to you every week. And it's certainly, we are having an effect. And I figured I will try to be slightly less antisocial and see how this new platform treats us.
It's funny. It's amazing how when you start to travel and your worlds start to collide. I saw our friends, one of the Jersey guys, Bill Colarulo, today, commented on another friend's post. And I'm thinking, how are the two of these people friends? And why are they friends? And it's worlds colliding. And
I say like, it happens all the time.
I'm like, oh my God, how does Bobby know Bill? And how does Bill know Bobby? And what does this mean for me in the middle? And it's blowing my mind. So I'm getting on the phone with both of them.
I just found a law school friend who's in Umansky's circle in Orlando. Doesn't realize that Umansky has this huge national following, and it's like, how do you know Bill? I'm like, everybody knows Bill.
Everybody knows Bill. Well, everybody does know you, Seth. That's the reality. And one of the things I want to do, in addition to your Clubhouse, invite people to join our Systemizing Your Law Firm from Growth Facebook group. We have the group. It's growing every week. We're getting more and more people that are interested in joining it. I'm going to be sharing a bunch of systems that I have this week. I've been putting together some over the last couple of days. I did some Loom recordings just to sort of walk people through things that you can do actually on social media, some social media systems. So I'm going to be sharing those in the group in the coming days. And I would invite everybody to join.
The point that I made during the last segment, which was, when you love something, like clearly this is, you and I need more hobbies. I took up tennis, but I could use a hobby. And instead you're creating looms for law firm scalability.
That's what I do in my spare time, but I swear this year, once I can get my vaccine starting next week, I am going to start getting out. I'm going to, I got the Peloton. I'm riding the bike. I'm going to get back into golf, I think. So I'm just outside getting some fresh air in my lungs. That's one of the things I have on my plans for this year. But anyway, folks, I want to thank you for being with us today. As always, you can always catch the show live every Tuesday and Thursday here live on our Facebook page. If you ever have any comments or questions, be sure to give us a message down below or send us a DM. We're happy to talk to you, go you through any problems that you might have or any questions you have about growing your law firm. But for now, I am Jay Ruane, CEO of FirmFlex, your social media marketing agency for lawyers. And that guy over there down in Bethesda is my man Seth Price of Blue Shark Digital, as well as Price Benowitz, and we are Max Growth Live. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you on Thursday. As always, you can syndicate this show on the Maximum Lawyer Media family, so you can get them through their podcast, through our podcast, through any of our videos. We try to put as much out there as possible. And please join us on Tuesday at 7 and on Friday at 1, right? Tuesday at 7 p.m., Friday at 1 p.m. on Clubhouse, the new social audio app. And this way we can get with you.
I know that we're wrapping up, but I'm going to have I never have a last word. I'm going to have a last word today. The thing that I think is worthy of a discussion, perhaps next Tuesday, is Clubhouse, which I'm enjoying. And I see interesting value, but I think like all bright, shiny objects need to be used in moderation. And that I like it here as a platform to talk about ideas globally, but that it's to think it's the road to riches for most B2C lawyers focused on a single geography is it will take a lot of critical mass there in order for that to work. And so I don't want to be one of those people like, hey, Clubhouse, it's the answer to all your issues. I think it's an interesting thing, just like Google Plus was back in the day. It is almost like an insider marketing world. Not that there aren't people doing best DUI or best plaintiff's practice issues, and there are amazing groups that are popping up, but that as a business development channel, I think that like many things, you have to be worried that the people that are marketing, that are good at bringing people in, it may not be in the best interest ROI for your time compared to other activities. And I just want to make sure that just because I'm talking about it, that it is not like, hey, we got to drop everything and that's the next thing that you need to go all in on.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been really reticent about jumping on Clubhouse is the fact that it is time sensitive. If you're on Facebook, you could scroll back 3 weeks. If you're on Instagram, you can easily go back and look at people who posted pictures 7, 8, 9 days ago if you haven't been on it for a while. In Clubhouse, if you're not listening, it's in the ether. It's gone. Now, I'm sure Clubhouse is recording it, but it's not something that you can decide to go back on. And quite frankly, listening to something takes a level of attention that blindly scrolling through a feed doesn't.
And I think that's part of the attraction. It takes us back to the days before DVRs, when you were listening to the radio and it was a talk radio and something happened, it was gone. There's a certain excitement that I have not heard since early talk radio, with that live host bringing people in, taking callers. That it reminds me of early Larry King, and I think that sort of like old school effect is part of the allure. That said, I'm not sure that this is, again, it is fun to experiment with. I'm trying to be less antisocial. At the same time, I just want to make sure that we are putting that caveat that this is not drop everything and this is the there. But if you enjoy it and you want to check it out, why not?
Absolutely. So be with us this week on any of our live shows, as well as Clubhouse will be there for you. But for now, I am Jay Ruane. He is Seth Price. We are Max Growth Live. Bye for now. Have a great week, and we'll see you on Thursday. Bye.